Hello folks, well, not to mention the facts of what I've seen or what ever happens in this world. Well, what if some of these things you could believe could be bullshit? Well, not to mention a logical theory, World War II events that had happened. Yeah, could be. I'm not saying that to defend or offend anybody. Could be if Adolf flew to Australia and was surprised to think shit like that, whatever it is. Just remember, things going on in this world and whatever it is was going to happen. Yeah, I've seen something about prostitution and things of changing names in textbooks and hideous things. Well, if I learn from school, if I know the Gulf of Mexico is called the Gulf of Mexico, that's just right and accurate names of this. What do you call the English Channel? You have another name for the English Channel? Of course, what the hell's the French is gonna call the English channel something else? Hey there, and let me tell you one thing what's going on. For a matter of fact, yes, just check out things out. There will be any evidence of what's going on. What if they feed you some bullshit? What if they feed you bullshit in a silver platter? Imagine all these kinds of things. One thing to make us look like an ass, the whole world. I mean, world, listen to me. Listen to me, world, what I'm saying. Well, somebody and anybody try to correct things on the right way, going to the right path. When I'm saying this, you're just going on and throwing out flames. Look, things like this could urge to be a whole global catastrophe. Things could change for a reason. Reason why you gotta hate on the person to try to make change. Change for what? Change for the better. Change for better understanding in this world. So to say this, we all know the Holocaust was a terrible thing, and the Jews have suffered since Adolf Hitler was in control. Well, this all these kinds of conspiracy theory of what is, yeah, I just think the guy just shot himself in the head. Who have else with this punk? But you know what? There is one thing of conspiracy theory that you'll find out how things going on here. The future ain't gonna be so bright at all until we find out the truth. Eventually, there were, whorehouses in occupied France. Yes, because Mr. Adolf Hitler won his crew to go pay for the hanky-panky in France. So these women could be recruited, and I think if somebody have the oldest prostitute alive, is the one involved with all these made-up garbage, all this made-up bullshit. What if these things going on was just like this? A bunch of, if this thing's going on like this, if it's not for her, they don't tell us about it, Thank goodness for the EU. Over there in Europe, they have everything under control and whatever it says for the meaning. But if it's not under control, if the EU is soft, you have a bunch of French hookers, French prostitutes protesting around every German embassy around the world that they say they were sex slaves by Nazi Germany, that these Nazi soldiers raped them. How hideous could that be until we find out that it was French prostitutes, it were French hookers involved in make up this kind of bullshit. It were French hookers. That day you will come through and said, look at this, and look what happened to the what is written in pages during 1944 under the U.S. Army. They said they have something about the truth of something, and then everything related with the U.S. Army documents from 1944, still at war with Japan, to what have settled in to something by a French whore that come up with these things, that same thing that the Nazi Germany or the Nazi Germans have recruited French prostitutes, and these French whores, get paid. They got paid millions of dollars back then. They get paid to get laid by a German Nazi soldier, and there is nothing about it. Nothing happened, but sometimes this French hooker could be in prison, and maybe the generation of that whore could be, another French whore is gonna come out and say, look, my great grandmother has made up all this bullshit, that this was made up. They say they might have connections with Chinese hookers and Korean hookers from back of that old French whore's time. That what you have fed up is bullshit made by a French hooker, and what it is that the day that we find out is all made up by a French whore, by a French prostitute during World War II, that they have connection with Chinese prostitutes and Korean prostitutes to form this dilemma. And probably you might see all these statues in Glendale, California, or the Comfort Women statues, if they find out it was everything involved by a French hooker, a French prostitute from World War II. Maybe the money, or maybe when we find out if the next generation, that they say that this French whore tell her great granddaughter, look, we got the money from the Chinese hookers and from these Korean hookers, and then they're gonna start going up putting statues of French sex slaves during World War II in Germany, that they say that these French sex slaves, actually French prostitutes, were raped by Nazi Germans. It would be that time that we just close our eyes and say, what the hell is going on? But what if somebody is telling the truth, says, oh, my great grandma has made up all this bullshit? Then we all know, and we just gonna thank randomyoko for all these things, and you better believe it. If we're gonna find out that a French prostitute from World War II, like like she was planning to blame it on Germany. All she did and her buddies to do this protest rally, to go again, pass it on to the Chinese prostitutes, pass it on to the Korean prostitutes, as the Japanese say they were recruited, doing the same thing with what the French prostitutes did, that they slept with Japanese soldiers, but these French prostitutes slept with Nazi German soldiers and they earn all the money. You know, it'll be crazy. And you'll find out that if Random Yoko's usually seeing this, if Yoko, if you are right, then the 1944 report of the U.S. Army said it's true. What the French prostitute said would believe her bullshit. Pass it on, passing the baton to the Chinese hook prostitutes, then to the Korean prostitutes that get paid, that they have slept with Japanese soldiers, but these French prostitutes like her that is guilty, that then they're saying that they're just making up this bullshit. They're gonna be so guilty of false testimony and pass it on to everybody else, and they have to, instead of putting the blame game on Germany, they pass it to the Chinese and Korean prostitutes and put it on Japan. All they do with that, these French hookers, all they did is, you know, their main plan was to blame it on Germany and say that, and they say that, well, these German Nazis raped these French sex slaves. They're French prostitutes. They get paid to get laid, you know. All they do is get paid to get laid by German Nazis, and they made all the money, and happy ending at the end of World War II. Nazi regime is over, you know. Believe me, you'll find out for yourself when the truth comes. Goodbye and peace out.